Ambassador Elena Vasquez stepped off the human transport ship onto the metal floors of Kepler Station. She carried a small bag with her personal items and a briefcase full of documents about Earth and humanity. This was supposed to be a simple meeting. Humans wanted to join the Galactic Council, and Elena was here to make that happen. The station was huge, much bigger than anything humans had built. Tall aliens with blue skin walked past her, small creatures that looked like walking. Plants rolled by on wheels instead of legs. The air smelled different here, full of strange scents from dozens of different worlds. Elena had studied alien languages for years, but seeing so many different species in one place still amazed her. She followed the signs to the meeting room, where the council would decide if humans could join their group. When the doors opened, Elena saw 12 aliens sitting at a curved table. Each one looked completely different from the others. Some had scales, others had fur, and one seemed to be made of living crystal. They all turned to look at her when she entered. "Welcome, human representative," said the crystal being. Its voice came through a small device that translated the words into English. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zentorian fleet. We need to discuss some problems before we can continue." Elena sat down in the chair they had prepared for her. She opened her briefcase and pulled out the documents Earth had sent. "What kind of problems? Our scientists said we met all the requirements to join the council." Admiral Kethvar touched a panel on the table. A large screen appeared in the air above them, showing numbers and charts. "These are the readings our sensors took when your ship arrived at our system. We ran the tests 3 times because we thought our equipment was broken." Elena looked at the charts but could not understand what they meant. The numbers were huge, but she did not know what they were measuring. "I'm sorry, but I don't understand what this shows." A tall alien with green skin and 4 arms leaned forward. "These numbers show how much power your ship produces. Even your smallest military ships create more energy than our biggest battleships." "That's impossible," Elena said. "The ship that brought me here is just a transport. It doesn't even have weapons." "That is exactly the problem," Admiral Kethvar said. "Your transport ship has a power source stronger than our warships. When we detected your military vessels at the edge of our space, our computers said they were planet killers." Elena felt confused and worried. Earth's military had told her that human ships were average compared to what they expected to find in space. There must be some mistake. Our ships use basic fusion reactors. That's simple technology. The aliens looked at each other. One of them, a creature that looked like a giant insect, clicked its mandibles together. "Simple. Fusion reactors are the most advanced power source most of our species have ever developed. Many council members still use chemical rockets." "Chemical rockets?" Elena could not hide her surprise. "But those are hundreds of years old. We stopped using those before we even left our solar system." The room became very quiet. Admiral Kethvar's crystal body changed color from blue to red. "How long has your species been traveling in space?" "About 300 years, Elena answered. "We've had faster-than-light travel for over a century." More silence. Finally, the green-skinned alien spoke. "Most species in this room achieved spaceflight less than 50 years ago. The oldest member has been traveling between stars for only 200 years. Elena began to understand the problem. "You're saying that human technology is more advanced than yours?" "Much more advanced," Admiral Kethvar said. "The weapons on your ships could destroy entire fleets. Your defensive shields are stronger than anything we have ever seen. Even your transport ship could probably fight off our patrol vessels." "But we don't want to fight anyone," Elena said quickly. "Humans came here to join the council and make friends with other species. We want peace." A small, furry alien at the end of the table made high-pitched noises. The translator said, "The Quillen representative asks why your species builds such powerful warships if you want peace." Elena thought about how to explain this. "Earth has been through many wars in our history. We learned that the best way to Keep peace is to be ready for war. Our ships are strong so that nobody will attack us. But what if you decide to attack us? Asked the insect-like alien. Your weakest ship could defeat our strongest. How can we trust you? This was not going the way Elena had planned. She had come here expecting to fill out forms and attend welcome ceremonies. Instead, the aliens were afraid of humanity's strength. Understand your concerns, Elena said carefully, but humans have rules about war. We only fight to defend ourselves or to protect others who cannot protect themselves. Rules can change, Admiral Kethvar said. Leaders can change. What happens if future humans decide they want to control the galaxy? Elena looked around the room at the worried faces of the alien representatives. She realized that joining the Galactic Council would not be as simple as anyone had thought. Perhaps we could limit the number of human ships allowed in council space, she suggested. Or we could share some of our technology to help make your defenses stronger. The aliens began talking among themselves in their own languages. The translator could not keep up with all of them speaking at once. Elena heard words like dangerous and threat mixed in with the translated speech. After several minutes, Admiral Kethvar called for quiet. We will need time to discuss this situation. Your species presents challenges we have never faced before. What kind of challenges? Elena asked. The galaxy is currently at war, the green-skinned alien explained. The Devourers have been attacking Council worlds for 2 centuries. We have been slowly losing ground to them. With human technology, we could win that war very quickly. That sounds like a good thing, Elena said. Yes and no, Admiral Kethvar replied. If humans help us win the war, you would become the most powerful species in the galaxy. Many of us worry about what would happen next. Elena understood now. The aliens needed human help to survive, but they were afraid that helping would make humans too powerful to control. What do you suggest we do? Elena asked. We need to see your technology in action, the insect alien said. We need to understand exactly how much more advanced you are. We also need guarantees, added the furry alien. Promises that humans will not use their power to conquer other species. Elena nodded. I will contact Earth and ask them to send a demonstration. But I can promise you right now that humans do not want to conquer anyone. We have our own planets to develop and explore. Admiral Kethvar's crystal body turned yellow. We hope that is true, but the galaxy has seen many species that started with good intentions. The meeting ended with no decisions made. Elena was given quarters on the station while the council debated what to do about humanity. She sent a message to Earth explaining the situation and requesting instructions. As she looked out the window of her room at the stars beyond, Elena wondered if humans were really ready to join the galactic community. Maybe they were too different, too advanced, too dangerous. But the war with the Devourers was real, and people were dying. If human technology could stop that suffering, didn't they have a responsibility to help? Elena fell asleep that night with more questions than answers, not knowing that her message to Earth would change the course of galactic history forever. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Leviathan and read her orders for the 3rd time. The message from Earth Command was clear but strange. She was to take her ship to the Vega system and perform a weapons demonstration for alien observers. The orders emphasized that this was supposed to be peaceful, but Sarah knew that weapons demonstrations were never really peaceful. Navigation, set course for Vega system, best speed, Sarah commanded. Her crew began preparing the ship for the journey. The Leviathan was a battle cruiser, one of the newer ships in Earth's fleet. Sarah had commanded her for 2 years and knew every inch of the vessel. The ship was 800 meters long and carried enough firepower to level a small moon. To Sarah and her crew, it was a normal warship. According to the reports from Ambassador Vasquez, the aliens would see it as something much more dangerous. The journey to Vega took 3 days. When they arrived, Sarah was surprised to see how many alien ships were waiting for them. Dozens of vessels from different species floated in space, all keeping a safe distance from where the demonstration would take place. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the lead alien vessel," reported Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. "Put it on screen," Sarah ordered. The view screen showed Admiral Kethvar, the crystal alien she had read about in the briefing files. Behind him, Sarah could see other alien officials watching nervously. "Captain Chen, I am Admiral Kethvar. We appreciate your willingness to demonstrate your capabilities for us." "Happy to help, Admiral," Sarah replied. "What would you like to see? Please show us your basic combat maneuvers and defensive systems first. Then we would like to see your weapons in action against a suitable target." Sarah looked at her tactical officer. "Commander Park, what targets do we have available?" "There's a large asteroid about 50,000 kilometers away," Commander Park reported. "It's roughly spherical, about 20 kilometers in diameter. No mineral value, no strategic importance." "Perfect," Sarah said. "Admiral Kethvar, we'll use that asteroid as our target. Please make sure all your ships maintain a safe distance." "How far would you consider safe?" Admiral Kethvar asked. Sarah thought about it. The aliens probably had no idea how powerful human weapons were. "I'd recommend at least 100,000 kilometers. She could see the surprise on the Admiral's crystal face. "That seems very far for a weapons test." "Trust me on this one," Sarah said. The alien ships moved back to what they thought was a safe distance. Sarah noticed that most of them stopped at only 50,000 kilometers. She decided not to argue. They would learn soon enough. "All stations, prepare for combat demonstration," Sarah announced over the ship's intercom. "This is not a drill, but our targets are not hostile. Weapons free for demonstration purposes only." The Leviathan began its demonstration with basic maneuvers. Sarah showed how the ship could accelerate, turn, and stop using its advanced engines. The alien observers took careful notes as the human ship moved through space faster than any of their vessels could match. Next came the defensive systems. Sarah ordered her crew to activate the energy shields and kinetic barriers. The ship's hull began to glow with a blue light as the protective fields came online. "Impressive," Admiral Kethvar commented over the radio. "Your defensive screens appear very strong." "These are just our basic shields," Sarah replied. "We have stronger ones for combat situations." The aliens exchanged worried looks. If these were basic shields, what did combat-grade protection look like? Now came the weapons demonstration. Sarah decided to start small and work up to the bigger guns. "Weapons officer, target the asteroid with pulse cannons. Single shot, low power." The Leviathan fired a single energy pulse at the distant asteroid. The beam of red light crossed the space between ship and target in less than a second. When it hit, a bright flash lit up the asteroid's surface, leaving a crater several hundred meters wide. The alien observers made excited noises. This single shot had done more damage than most of their weapons could do in several minutes of sustained fire. "Now show them the railguns," Sarah ordered. Commander Park targeted the asteroid with one of the ship's magnetic accelerator cannons. The railgun fired a solid metal projectile at a significant fraction of light speed. When it hit the asteroid, the impact sent shock waves through the entire rock. Huge chunks of stone flew off into space. "Remarkable," Admiral Kethvar said, but his voice sounded worried now. "Your kinetic weapons are very powerful." "We're just getting started," Sarah said. "Weapons officer, prepare the main particle beam array. Full power. Sustained fire for 5 seconds." "Captain," Commander Park said quietly, "full power might completely destroy the target." Sarah looked at the alien ships watching from what they thought was a safe distance. Maybe it was time to show them exactly what they were dealing with. "Proceed with full power," Sarah ordered. The Leviathan's main weapons charged up with a deep humming sound that vibrated through the ship's hull. Energy collectors along the ship's spine began to glow brighter and brighter until they looked like small suns. "All alien vessels, you may want to adjust your visual sensors for a bright flash," Sarah warned. The particle beam fired. It was not red like the pulse cannons or invisible like the railgun. This beam was pure white light, so bright that it lit up the entire area of space around the target. The beam struck the asteroid and simply began to disintegrate it. Rock, metal, and ice that had been compressed into solid matter for millions of years suddenly became expanding gas and plasma. The 20-kilometer asteroid did not break apart or explode. It just stopped existing. In exactly 3.7 seconds, 20 cubic kilometers of solid matter had been converted into energy and scattered atoms. The silence on the radio lasted for almost a minute. Finally, Admiral Kethvar spoke, and his voice was barely a whisper. "The asteroid is gone." "Yes, sir," Sarah replied. "Complete matter conversion. That's what our particle beams do at full power." "How? How long would it take your ship to destroy a planet?" asked a different alien voice. Sarah looked at Commander Park, who quickly ran some calculations. "Depends on the size of the planet," Sarah said. "Something like Earth would take maybe 6 hours of continuous fire." More silence from the alien ships. "Captain Chen," Admiral Kethvar said finally, "may I ask how many ships like yours Earth has?" Sarah thought about how to answer that question. The truth was that the Leviathan was one of over 200 similar ships in Earth's fleet. There were also larger ships, smaller ships, and specialized vessels that made the Leviathan look like a patrol boat. "The Leviathan is a standard battlecruiser," Sarah said carefully. "Earth has many ships of this class." "How many is many?" Admiral Kethvar pressed. Sarah decided to be honest. "Several hundred ships of this type or larger." The radio went completely silent. Sarah could imagine the alien commanders trying to understand what she had just told them. If Earth had hundreds of ships that could destroy asteroids in seconds, what could they do to enemy fleets? After several minutes, Admiral Kethvar spoke again. "Captain Chen, we have seen enough. Thank you for the demonstration." "Any questions about our capabilities?" Sarah asked. "Yes," Admiral Kethvar said. "Why does your species need such powerful weapons?" Sarah thought about the wars in human history, about the constant need to be ready for threats that might come from anywhere. "Because the universe is a dangerous place, Admiral. If you want to protect what you care about, you need to be strong enough to fight off anything that tries to take it away." "And if someone tried to take away your planets?" Admiral Kethvar asked. "Then we would stop them," Sarah said simply. As the Leviathan prepared to return to Earth, Sarah watched the alien ships on her view screen. They were not moving away from the area. Instead, they seemed to be studying the empty space where the asteroid had been, as if they could not believe what they had seen. Sarah understood their shock. The demonstration had probably changed how they thought about warfare, about power, and about humanity's place in the galaxy. She just hoped it would change things for the better. But as she watched the alien ships finally begin to move away, Sarah had a feeling that this demonstration had started something that could not be stopped. The galaxy now knew what human weapons could do, and that knowledge would spread to both allies and enemies. War was coming, whether humans wanted it or not. News traveled fast in the galaxy, especially bad news. Within days of Captain Chen's demonstration at Vega, every species in known space had heard about human weapons. The stories grew with each telling. Some said humans could destroy stars. Others claimed they could crack planets in half with a single shot. Most of the stories were wrong, but they were not wrong enough. In the dark reaches of space beyond the galactic rim, the Devourers received the reports with intense interest. The Devourer species did not think like other aliens. They did not have individual minds or personal desires. Instead, they shared a collective consciousness that spread across thousands of ships and millions of beings. When one Devourer learned something, they all learned it instantly. The Devourers had been at war with the Galactic Council for over 200 years. They attacked planets not for conquest, but for resources. Every world they captured was stripped of metals, minerals, and organic matter to feed their growing fleets. They had no interest in diplomacy or peace. They only understood consumption and growth. But the reports about human technology made the Devourer collective pause and reconsider their strategy. If humans really possessed weapons that could destroy asteroids in seconds, those weapons represented either the greatest threat or the greatest prize the Devourers had ever encountered. The collective mind reached a decision quickly. They would test these humans to see if the reports were true. If humans were as powerful as claimed, the Devourers would either destroy them before they could interfere with Devourer expansion or capture their technology to make the collective unstoppable. Commander Marcus Rodriguez was having a quiet day aboard the UES Defiant when his peaceful patrol was interrupted by the largest sensor contact he had ever seen. The Defiant was a destroyer, smaller and faster than Captain Chen's battle cruiser, but still powerful enough to handle most threats. Marcus had been patrolling the outer edge of human space, watching for pirates or other small problems. The sensor. Reading made no sense at first. Lieutenant Kim at the sensor station ran the scan 3 times before she reported to Marcus. "Captain, I'm showing a massive fleet approaching our position. Distance is approximately 2 light hours and closing. Fast." "How massive?" Marcus asked, moving to look at her display. "Sir, the computer is having trouble counting them all. Best estimate is over 3,000 ships." Marcus felt his stomach drop. 3,000 ships was more than the entire human fleet. "Are you sure those readings are correct?" "Yes, sir. And Captain, they match the profiles for Devourer vessels." Marcus had heard about the Devourers but had never seen one of their ships. They rarely came this far into Council space, preferring to attack the outer colonies where defenses were weak. A fleet this size could only mean one thing. They were coming for Earth. Communications. Send an emergency message to Fleet Command. Tell them we have 3,000 Devourer ships heading for the core systems. Send all our sensor data. Message. "Sent, Captain," reported Ensign Park. "Navigation. Plot a course back toward Earth. Best possible speed." "Sir, should we try to intercept the enemy fleet?" Lieutenant Kim asked. Marcus looked at his crew. The Defiant carried 47 people. Good men and women who trusted him to make the right decisions. Fighting 3,000 enemy ships with one destroyer would not be brave. It would be suicide. Negative. Our job now is to get this information back to headquarters and help coordinate the defense. The Defiant turned toward home and accelerated to maximum speed. Behind them, the largest Devourer fleet in history continued its approach toward human space. At Earth Defense Headquarters, Admiral Janet Park received Marcus's message with a mixture of fear and excitement. Fear, because 3,000 enemy ships could overwhelm even Earth's defenses. Excitement, because this attack would finally give humanity a chance to test their weapons against a real threat. "How long until the Devourer fleet reaches Earth?" she asked her aide. "Based on their current speed, approximately 18 hours, Admiral." "Good. That gives us time to prepare a proper welcome." Admiral Park walked to her communications console and entered a security code she had hoped never to use. The code gave her access to military resources that were so classified that most of Earth's government did not know they existed. Admiral Park to Titan Base. Immediate activation of all Titan-class vessels. Authorization code Alpha 77 Black. The response came immediately. "Titan Base acknowledging activation order. All vessels will be ready for deployment in 12 hours. Admiral Park smiled. The Devourers were about to learn why humans had survived every threat their dangerous homeworld could throw at them. Meanwhile, the Devourer fleet continued its approach. The collective mind was busy analyzing every piece of information they had gathered about human technology. Their ships were arranged in a massive formation designed to overwhelm any defense through sheer numbers. Each Devourer vessel was a work of organic engineering. Rather than building ships from metal and circuits, the Devourers grew them from living tissue that could repair itself and adapt to new threats. Their weapons were biological constructs that fired streams of acid or clouds of aggressive nanobots designed to break down enemy hulls. The largest ships in the fleet were their World Eaters, massive vessels designed to land on planets and consume everything on the surface. These ships were over 50 kilometers long and carried millions of Devourer drones ready to strip away every resource they could find. The collective mind was confident that even if human weapons were as powerful as reported, no single species could stand against such overwhelming force. The humans would be crushed, their technology captured, and their worlds consumed. But the Devourers had made a critical error in their planning. They based their attack strategy on what they had learned from fighting other Council species. Those aliens used tactics and technologies that were thousands of years old. They fought wars slowly, with careful movements and long sieges. Humans fought differently. As the Devourer fleet approached the outer edge of human space, they began to detect massive energy signatures coming from the direction of Earth. The readings were unlike anything in their database. The power levels were so high that the collective mind briefly wondered if humans had somehow weaponized their star. All Devourer vessels, prepare for combat, the collective consciousness announced through their bio-neural network. Target species, shows advanced technology. Proceed with maximum aggression. The fleet accelerated toward Earth, ready to face whatever primitive defenses the humans could offer. The collective mind was so focused on their primary target that they failed to notice several new contacts appearing on their sensors. The new contacts were not coming from Earth. They were coming from empty space itself, as if ships were materializing from nothing. The Devourer sensors had never seen anything like the signatures these new vessels were producing. Commander Rodriguez, still racing toward Earth aboard the Defiant, was the first human to see what was about to happen. His sensors detected the new arrivals before anyone else, and what he saw made him stop breathing for several seconds. "Lieutenant Kim, are you seeing this?" he asked. "Yes, sir." 5 massive contacts appearing directly between the Devourer fleet and Earth. Energy signatures are... "Sir, the computer can't classify them." Marcus looked at the tactical display and tried to understand what he was seeing. The 5 new ships were enormous, each one larger than the biggest Devourer vessel. But their energy output was beyond anything in human databases. "Communications. Try to contact those ships. Find out who they are." The response came immediately, and the voice was familiar. "UES Defiant. This is Admiral Elena Rodriguez aboard the UES Colossus. Nice to see you out here, Commander," Marcus almost laughed with relief. Elena Rodriguez was his sister, but he had not seen her in over 2 years. She had been assigned to some kind of classified project that even family members were not allowed to know about. "Admiral Rodriguez, good to hear your voice. What are you flying out there?" "Titan-class battleship, Marcus. We're here to handle the Devourer problem." "There are 3,000 enemy ships, Elena. Even with 5 of your vessels, the odds are not good." Elena's voice was calm and confident. "Don't worry, little brother. We brought enough firepower." Marcus watched his sensors as the 5 human ships moved into position between Earth and the approaching Devourer fleet. He had thought Captain Chen's demonstration was impressive, but the energy readings from these Titan-class vessels were on a completely different level. The Devourer collective mind detected the human ships and quickly analyzed the threat they represented. 5 ships against 3,000 should not be a significant obstacle. The collective decided to proceed with the attack and ordered the fleet to engage the human defenders. That decision would prove to be the last mistake the Devourer collective ever made. The UES Colossus and her sister ships powered up their main weapons. Space itself seemed to bend around them as they prepared to show the galaxy what human engineering could really accomplish when there were no limits and no restrictions. The Battle of Proxima Threshold was about to begin, and it would change the course of galactic history forever. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Colossus and watched 3,000 enemy ships approaching her position. The Devourer fleet stretched across space like a dark cloud, each vessel pulsing with organic biolights. She had trained for this moment for 3 years, but seeing so many enemy ships still made her nervous. "Admiral, all Titan-class vessels report ready for combat," announced Commander Harrison from the tactical station. "Very good. Open a channel to all ships in the battle group." Elena looked around her bridge at the crew of the most powerful warship humanity had ever built. The Colossus was 3 kilometers long and carried weapons that most scientists said were impossible to build. The ship's main reactor used controlled black holes to generate energy. Its weapons could manipulate gravity itself. "This is Admiral Rodriguez to all Titan vessels. We are about to engage the largest enemy fleet in galactic history. Our job is to protect Earth and show the galaxy that humanity will not be intimidated. Remember your training, follow your orders, and let's end this war." The 5 Titan class ships spread out into a battle formation. Each ship was different, designed to test various experimental technologies. The Colossus specialized in gravity weapons. The UES Titan used antimatter cannons. The UES Behemoth carried particle accelerators that could reach nearly light speed. The UES Leviathan had energy weapons that could destabilize atomic bonds. The UES Goliath was equipped with space-time distortion devices. Together, they represented the absolute peak of human military technology. "Enemy fleet is entering weapons range," reported Commander Harrison. "All ships, you are authorized to engage. Show them what Titan-class vessels can do." The UES Titan fired first. Its antimatter cannons created beams of pure destruction that crossed the space between fleets in milliseconds. When the beams hit Devourer ships, matter and antimatter annihilated each other in flashes of pure energy. Entire enemy vessels simply vanished, converted into light and radiation. The Devourers responded by firing their own weapons. Streams of acid and clouds of nanobots shot toward the human ships, but when they hit the Titan-class vessels, nothing happened. The human shields absorbed or deflected every attack without any visible effort. "Enemy weapons are having no effect, Commander," Harrison reported. "Our shields are not even registering the impacts." Elena nodded. She had expected this. The Titan ships were built to fight enemies much more advanced than the Devourers. These biological weapons were primitive compared to what the ships could defend against. All ships begin primary bombardment. Full power. What happened next defied every law of physics that most species understood. The UES Colossus fired its gravity cannons, creating localized black holes that moved through space toward the enemy fleet. When these artificial singularities reached Devourer ships, they did not explode or burn. They simply crushed the vessels into points of infinite density and then evaporated, taking the destroyed ships with them. The UES Behemoth's particle accelerators fired streams of matter moving at 99% of light speed. When these particles hit enemy vessels, the kinetic energy was so enormous that it tore apart the molecular structure of anything they touched. Devourer ships did not just break apart, they ceased to exist at the atomic level. The UES Leviathan's energy weapons disrupted the forces that held matter together. Enemy ships touched by these beams lost cohesion and collapsed into clouds of individual atoms. The organic technology that made Devourer vessels so adaptable became their weakness as the biological systems lost the ability to maintain their structure. The UES Goliath fired weapons that twisted space and time around enemy ships. Devourer vessels caught in these distortions experienced time dilation effects that aged them millions of years in seconds. Ships that had been alive and growing suddenly became ancient and brittle, crumbling into dust. Commander Marcus Rodriguez watched the battle from the UES Defiant and could not believe what he was seeing. His sister's fleet was not just winning, they were systematically erasing the enemy from existence. In the first 5 minutes of combat, over 500 Devourer ships had been destroyed without inflicting any damage on the human forces. "This is impossible," Lieutenant Kim whispered from her sensor station. "The energy readings don't make sense. Those weapons are operating beyond theoretical limits." Marcus understood how she felt. The Titan-class ships were using technologies that seemed to violate the basic laws of science. But then he remembered that humans had always been good at finding ways around laws that other species thought could not be broken. The Devourer collective mind was experiencing something it had never felt before: panic. The shared consciousness that connected millions of beings was overwhelmed by the speed and completeness of their destruction. Ships that had taken decades to grow were being eliminated in seconds. Weapons that had conquered hundreds of worlds were useless against human defenses. For the first time in their species' history, the Devourers tried to retreat. Ships at the back of the fleet began turning away from the battle, hoping to escape before the human weapons could reach them. "Enemy fleet is attempting to withdraw," Commander Harrison reported. Elena considered letting them go. The Devourers had learned their lesson and would not threaten human space again. But then she thought about all the planets they had consumed, all the species they had destroyed, all the suffering they had caused across 2 centuries of war. Negative. No survivors. End this. The 5 Titan ships accelerated after the fleeing Devourers. Their experimental engines allowed them to move faster than any ship in the galaxy. There would be no escape for the enemy fleet. What followed was not a battle, but an execution. The Titan-class vessels moved through the Devourer formation like sharks through a school of fish. Every weapon they fired destroyed multiple targets. Within minutes, hundreds more enemy ships had been reduced to expanding clouds of plasma and scattered atoms. The Devourer collective mind began to fragment as ship after ship was destroyed. The shared consciousness that had connected the species for millions of years started to break down as there were not enough individuals left to maintain the neural network. In desperation, the remaining Devourers tried a final attack. Every surviving ship fired at once, concentrating all their weapons on the UES Colossus. Thousands of acid streams and nanobot clouds converged on Elena's flagship. The attacks struck the Colossus and were absorbed by its shields without causing any damage. Elena did not even feel the impacts through the ship's hull. "Return fire," she ordered calmly. The Colossus responded with a gravity pulse that created a massive gravitational wave. The wave spread out from the ship in all directions, and every Devourer vessel it touched was instantly compressed into a point smaller than an atom before being torn apart by tidal forces. In less than 18 minutes, the largest fleet in Galactic history had been completely destroyed. 3,000 ships and millions of beings had been reduced to scattered particles and empty space. The war that had lasted 2 centuries was over. Marcus Rodriguez sat in his command chair and stared at his sensor display. Where the Devourer fleet had been, there was now nothing. Just empty space and the slowly expanding debris of a completely one-sided battle. "Elena, are you still there?" he called over the radio. "I'm here, Marcus. Is everyone okay?" "We're fine. What about casualties on your ships?" "0 casualties. 0 damage to any Titan vessel. The enemy never got through our shields." Marcus tried to process what he had just witnessed. 5 human ships had destroyed 3,000 enemy vessels without taking any damage. The implications of such overwhelming superiority were staggering. "Elena, what are you going to tell Earth Command about this?" There was a long pause before his sister answered. "I honestly don't know. We came out here to defend human space, but what we just did, this wasn't a battle. This was something else entirely." Within hours of the battle's end, reports began, reaching every capital in the galaxy. The Council species that had been fighting the Devourers for 2 centuries learned that their ancient enemy had been completely eliminated in less than 20 minutes by 5 human ships. The reaction was not celebration. It was terror. If humans could do this to the Devourers, what would stop them from doing it to anyone else? Every species in the galaxy began to recalculate their relationship with humanity. Some sought immediate alliance. Others began planning for their own defense against the new galactic superpower. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood in her quarters aboard the Colossus and looked out at the stars. She had followed her orders and protected Earth, but in doing so, she had revealed capabilities that would change how every species in the galaxy viewed humanity. The age of human dominance had begun, whether humanity wanted it or not, and Elena feared that this was only the beginning of the consequences that would follow from 18 minutes of overwhelming victory. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the Battle of Proxima Threshold, Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked into the Galactic Council chambers for what felt like the 100th time. But the room was very different now. Half of the original member species had requested permanent diplomatic missions on Earth. The other half had stopped attending council meetings altogether, choosing instead to communicate through heavily encrypted messages from their home systems. The seating arrangement had changed too. Where once all species sat in a circle as equals, now there was a special section for human representatives, positioned where everyone could see them clearly. Elena did not like the separation, but the other species had insisted on it. The Council recognizes Ambassador Vasquez of Earth, announced Admiral Kethvar. His crystal body had remained a nervous yellow color ever since the reports of human military capabilities had reached the Council. "Thank you, Admiral," Elena said, standing, to address the Assembly. "I want to discuss the ongoing concerns about human military presence in Council space." A murmur went through the assembled aliens. This was the topic everyone wanted to discuss, but no one wanted to bring up directly. The Quillan representative, a small, furry creature named Zixtar, spoke first. "Ambassador, our governments are receiving daily reports about human ship movements. Your patrol vessels are more powerful than our battleships. How can we feel secure with such forces near our worlds?" Elena had heard this complaint many times in recent months. "The ships you're detecting are standard patrol vessels. They're designed to protect trade routes and respond to emergencies. We have no intention of threatening anyone." "But the capability exists," said the hegemony representative, General Zandros. His green skin had taken on a pale shade that indicated stress among his species. "Your smallest ships could conquer our largest colonies without effort." "The same could be said of any advanced species," Elena replied. "The Zentaurians could conquer primitive worlds with their technology. The hegemony could overwhelm younger civilizations. Power exists at every level. What matters is how it's used." Admiral Kethvar's crystal body flickered through several colors before settling on red. "Ambassador, the destruction of the Devourer fleet has changed the balance of power in this galaxy. In 18 minutes, 5 human ships eliminated a threat that we had been fighting unsuccessfully for 200 years. "And isn't that a good thing?" Elena asked. "The Devourer threat is over. No more worlds will be consumed. No more species will be driven to extinction." "Yes, but now we have a different problem," said a new voice. Elena turned to see Representative Morden of the Catharian Empire, a species that had joined the Council only recently. "The problem is that humanity has become too powerful for the existing galactic order." Elena felt tired. These conversations always went the same way: fear, suspicion, and the assumption that humans would eventually become conquerors. "What exactly are you suggesting, Representative Morden?" "Limits," Morden said simply. "Restrictions on human military technology. Treaties that prevent your species from building more advanced weapons. Oversight of your fleet movements." The chamber fell silent. Elena looked around at the alien faces and saw the same expression on all of them. They were afraid, and they wanted to control that fear by controlling humanity. "I'm afraid that's not possible," Elena said calmly. "Why not?" Admiral Kethvar asked. "Because you're asking us to make ourselves vulnerable to unknown threats. What if another enemy like the Devourers appears? What if someone develops weapons specifically designed to counter human technology? We cannot and will not limit our ability to defend ourselves. General Zandros leaned forward. But Ambassador, your current capabilities far exceed any reasonable defensive needs. The weapons you demonstrated could destroy entire star systems. If necessary, Elena agreed. But they won't be used unless we're threatened with extinction. How can we be sure of that? Asked Zixtar. How do we know that future human leaders will not decide to expand their territory? Elena had been expecting this question. It was the core of every species' concern about humanity. You have our word. But more importantly, you have our history. Humans have never conquered other intelligent species. We've fought wars among ourselves, but we've never attempted to subjugate aliens. Your species has never had the capability before, Mordun pointed out. Power changes people. Power changes entire civilizations. Perhaps, Elena said. But consider the alternative. If you could limit human power, what would you do with that knowledge? How long before one of your species decides to use similar restrictions against another? How long before the strongest become the rulers and the weak become subjects? The chamber was quiet again. Elena could see that some of the representatives were beginning to understand her point. The galaxy has always been governed by strength, Elena continued. The difference is that now the strongest species is also the one with the least interest in conquest. We have entire star systems to explore and develop. We have scientific mysteries to solve and new technologies to create. Why would we waste time conquering other species when we can barely manage our own expansion? Admiral Kethvar's color shifted to blue, indicating thoughtfulness. So what do you propose, Ambassador? How do we address the concerns of species that fear human dominance? Elena had been thinking about this question for months. Cooperation. Not restrictions or limitations, but partnership. Share your knowledge with us, and we'll share ours with you. Work with us to explore new regions of space. Help us establish trade routes and scientific research stations? And if we refuse? General Zandros asked. Then you refuse, Elena said simply. We won't force anyone to work with us, but we also won't limit our capabilities to make others feel comfortable. Representative Morden stood up. This sounds like an ultimatum. Accept human leadership or be left behind. No, Elena said firmly. It's an invitation. Join us as equals in exploring and developing this galaxy, or go your own way. But don't expect us to make ourselves weak so that you can feel strong. A new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. What about the Titan-class vessels? Elena turned to see who had asked the question. It was a representative from the outer colonies, species she did not recognize. What about them? Elena asked. Are those ships still operational? Are you building more of them? Elena hesitated. This information was classified at the highest levels of Earth government, but the question had been asked publicly, and the Council deserved some kind of answer. The Titan-class vessels have been withdrawn from active service, she said carefully. They were experimental ships, built to test new technologies. Now that the tests are complete, they serve as a strategic reserve. How many ships are in this reserve? Admiral Kethvar asked. That information is classified. So you could have more ships like the ones that destroyed the Devourers? General Zandros asked. We could have many things, Elena replied. The question is whether we need them. Right now, we don't. The chamber erupted in quiet conversations as representatives discussed Elena's words with their advisors. She could see the fear and calculation in their expressions as they tried to understand what humanity's true capabilities might be. Dr. James Wright, sitting beside Elena as Earth's military advisor, leaned over to whisper in her ear. That was either very clever or very dangerous. Probably both, Elena whispered back. Admiral Kethvar called for order. Ambassador Vasquez, the Council appreciates your candor. but we still need concrete assurances about human intentions." "What kind of assurances?" Elena asked. "Non-aggression treaties, mutual defense pacts, trade agreements that benefit all parties." Elena nodded. "Those things are certainly possible, but they have to be genuine partnerships, not attempts to control or limit human development." "And what about species that cannot offer you anything of value?" Zixtar asked. "What about civilizations that are too primitive or too weak to be useful partners?" This was the question Elena had been dreading. It cut to the heart of what kind of galactic power humanity would become. "The same thing we've always done with less advanced species," Elena said. "We help them develop at their own pace. We protect them from threats they cannot handle themselves. We offer knowledge and technology when they're ready for it." "And if they're never ready?" Morden asked. "If they remain primitive forever?" "Then they remain primitive forever," Elena said. "We're not interested in forcing anyone to change." "But you'll protect them? From external threats, yes. From themselves, no." Elena could see that her answers were not satisfying everyone. Some species wanted guarantees that humanity would never use its power. Others wanted assurances that human protection would always be available. Neither group was going to get what they wanted. "The Council will need time to consider these matters," Admiral Kethvar announced. "We will reconvene in 1 month to continue these discussions." As the session ended and representatives began filing out of the chamber, Elena remained in her seat. Dr. Wright stayed beside her, both of them watching the aliens leave. "How do you think that went?" Wright asked. "About as well as could be expected," Elena replied. "They're terrified of us, but they need us. They want to control us, but they can't. Eventually, they'll have to accept the new reality." "And what is the new reality?"